Well, for this month's response to Buck Run 11's Prepper Challenge, January 2016, a couple of us in the community were over here in Louisiana. We were laughing about that last night. We were gonna, show that really what you need in Louisiana for a winter preparedness bag would be, a tank top and maybe a pair of shorts, some suntan lotion. So I kind of expect that the BC truck is going to come up with a Hawaiian shirt and a Mai Tai or something like that. But in reality, I guess yesterday was maybe the end of our ha-ha moment as far as this warm weather in December thing, because the cold weather, as far as we are concerned, the cold weather's coming. It's 40 degrees out there right now, or 40 something degrees out there right now with a wind chill of 30, and in about 5 days or so we'll actually get down to 29 degrees or something like that. So I know it's still not cold, but it does kind of get you thinking, you might want to prepare a little bit. So let me go over some stuff that I've thought about a little bit. Now I know this month's challenge is actually kind of geared toward a kind of a bag. What kind of things would you actually take with you in case of an accident or something? Cold weather preparedness bag. So I'm going to do that, but in addition to that, I want to talk about preparing your vehicle for the cold weather, and the time to do that is really before it gets cold. So some of the things that you do in the summer to your vehicle may not work too good in the winter. So putting water, just plain water, in your washer fluid tank, in the summertime that would be okay. You really need to use a de-icer type washer fluid in the wintertime. If you put water in your washer fluid container and the temperatures go down so low to freeze, then the possibility exists that you could crack and rupture your tank. The other thing is the fluid will not be available to you when you may need it. Your coolant, you need to check your coolant. They make a device where you can actually check the coolant to see if it's still good. And it'll tell you the temperature at which that coolant would protect you. Your motor oil, I would go ahead and change it using a motor oil that is recommended for the temperatures that you expect to encounter in the coming couple of months or so. If our expected temperature is 0 to 30 degrees or whatever, then we're going to follow the manufacturer's instructions or directions and use that weight of motor oil. It helps the engine run better in the colder temperatures, helps it start easier, such as that. If your battery is about 3 years old or so, or older, the possibility of that battery stranding you when it gets cold and loses some of its power is pretty great. This is a load tester that you can test the battery and see, if it maybe has a weak cell or something. When you hook it up, it's going to tell you how many volts you got. So right now we're just about 12.8 volts. You can hold this load button down for 15 to 20 seconds and see that the meter is going to drop down. It's going to tell you, if it's weak or if it's bad. And then when you let go, it's going to end up somewhere, hopefully back up above 12 volts. Let's see. So at 15 seconds, this battery is still at about 10.8 volts. It's still in the green. We let it go. it pops back up to about 12.4 volts. So that's a good battery. This battery was purchased in June of, or actually this battery was made in June of 2012. So I really needed to check that out to make sure that it was okay. That's no guarantee that that battery is going to make it over the winter. Winter is tough on a battery. If anything is going to kill a battery, it's cold weather and leaving something on. Other things you can look at under the hood would be your battery connections. It's a good idea to take these off, clean them up with a wire brush. They make protectant chemicals you can put on there to protect it. Another thing you can do is just put it all back together and rub Vaseline or even grease over the top to keep oxidation from getting to these things. A loose connection will not only mess you up as far as trying to get the power out of the battery, but the alternator cannot put power back into the battery if the connection's bad. So check things out like that. You know, just basic maintenance. Be aware of the temperatures that you expect the vehicle to be operated in and follow your manual. Prepare accordingly. One of the most overlooked things on a vehicle is tire pressure. You know, nowadays we have this little gadget inside the wheel that sends a signal to the dashboard and tells us what our tire pressure is. But a vehicle, an older vehicle such as this Jeep, you've actually got to get the tire pressure gauge out and check it out. Cold weather is going to make the pressure lower in a tire, so you need to check it out. When your temperature starts to fluctuate, you need to check this out. You can save yourself a lot of agony, you know, if you just know that there's the correct amount of pressure in these tires. This one's low. Our temperature dropped, pressure went down. So I've got to check out all these tires. How many tires should we be checking out? 5. Don't forget your spare. Also, don't forget your tire changing tools. Know where they are and how to use them. So when do you replace your wipers? Well, like most of us, you replace them when they don't work anymore. But, you know, if you inspect these things and replace them maybe once a year, and this will be a great time of year to replace them, is right there before, you know, it gets cold, chances are you'd never have a problem with visibility. Winter is tough on wipers. You got these things, rubber slivers that are scraping across ice and everything. They're very susceptible to damage. So some of the things you might want to do is give your wipers a break. If you can't park your vehicle under a roof to keep the ice from collecting on the windshield and the wipers, then you might want to get a cover. They make covers that can cover all this stuff up. That way when you come out in the morning after a ice storm or whatever, you can just take the cover off. You'll have a relatively clean windshield and clean wipers. The last thing I'm going to talk about is what you do to your vehicle before you actually hit the road. So you've got all of your preps in your vehicle, your tire pressure is good, everything under the hood is good. But what about your headlights, your tail lights, your visibility as far as your windshield, your side windows, and your side mirrors? You need to make sure this stuff is clean, clear, and don't put yourself at risk driving down the road with a hole scraped off on the windshield about the size of a softball, so you can see exactly what's in front of you, and that's about it. Very, very dangerous. You're just setting yourself up for failure. So do your part to stay out of the ditch and not hit anybody else, and just hope everybody else does the same. And how easy is it to swing by the gas station every now and then and top this thing off. In the winter months, you probably should not let your fuel tank get below a half tank of fuel. If you slide off in a ditch and you are going to be relying on the vehicle engine for heat, if you have no fuel, you have no heat. You're going to need the fuel anyway. It's not going to cost you any more money to keep the tank topped off, so why take a chance on it? Let's go over what you might need to carry in your vehicle if you get in a jam, and this is for winter preparedness. Now, this list is very small. This is by no means all-inclusive. This depends a lot on where you are. I'm in Louisiana. We don't really get a winter much here, and when we do, it's very short, not too severe. So the fears of, you know, running off in the ditch and all that are here, but not nearly as much so as like when I lived in Montana. So when I lived in Montana, my preps were a great deal more extensive. So anyway, for this, it also depends on how much room you have in your vehicle. You know, are you driving around in a single cab truck, a 4-door truck, an extended cab truck, a small car, or mid-sized car, a large car? How much room do you have? How many people normally travel with you? Are you alone? Are you packing for one person? Or are you packing for 5 people? You got to take into consideration all those things. So let's just go through a list real quick. You know, I've used this before. Okay, not scoopable, but kitty litter of some kind of, you know, granulated stuff like that, and just leave it in these containers so it doesn't spill everywhere. If you buy a bag of it, you might end up with a bag of kitty litter in your trunk. But if you happen to get stuck, which is really easy to get stuck in ice, almost anything can render your vehicle immobile when ice is involved. You know, if you can clear out the area in front of the tires that actually need to be rotating under power and put some of this kitty litter under there, it will give you some traction. You probably want to carry, you know, this is a 14-pound container of kitty litter. I would call that the minimum. You know, if you get the small container and you're out there and it's cold and you got gloves on and you're trying to shake the stuff under a tire, you may use up your kitty litter pretty quick. You know, the first attempt at getting this stuff under the tire may not work. You may need to do it 2 or 3 times, so make sure you got plenty. You know, just pour some in your hand, toss it under the tire, you know, put some out in front of the tire where you want to go. Also, not a bad idea if we don't have one here because we don't expect snow, but a little shovel, at least an e-tool, an entrenching tool. You can get those at a Army surplus store, probably generic ones online. You know, they're really cheap. They're good for digging, for scraping. You can do all kinds of stuff with them, and they're very compact. You unscrew them, they fold up, and they take a small footprint. Just about anywhere you go, except for maybe Florida, South Florida, and California, you're gonna need an ice scraper of some kind. Don't really need to tell you what that's for. Also, one of those sweeping things if you're expecting snow. It's always a good idea. In the winter months, we talked about this earlier, the cold weather sucks the power out of the battery. It is a very good idea for you to carry jumper cables, good, heavy-duty, thick and long jumper cables with you in the winter months, even if you just replace your battery, because anything could happen. You could leave your dome light on and then you just start the day off with a weak battery, you know. So jumper cables, some kind of a light or 2 or more, you know. these little lights, they're not the brightest thing in the world. Matter of fact, I've got it disabled, which is a good idea, by the way. Put a little piece of plastic over the batteries in there. These are $1 at Walmart. Extra battery still in the package. A headlight, because if you need both your hands, one of them doesn't need to be holding a flashlight. Seal it all up, put it in one bag. In certain situations, you may need some duct tape. You know, you could be in your vehicle and needing to, you know, who knows, maybe there's a hole in your windshield and you can just patch that up and keep the cold air from coming in. We're talking now like you got stranded, you're in a ditch, this may be after dark, maybe on a road where there's no traffic. You may have to shelter in place in that vehicle, which is, by the way, probably the best thing for you to do. If you go wandering out, nobody's going to know where you are. If they see your vehicle, they're going to be drawn to the vehicle, and hopefully will find you in it. Okay. Duct tape could help you insulate your windows with, you know, something you have in your vehicle that you're not using. Who knows? You know, it doesn't take up much room. In certain situations, you may need a lighter. Maybe, as some of you may know, lighters don't really work too well when it gets cold, but these fire starters always work, even when they're wet. I proved that on a previous video. I'm going to steal a little information from J00 about the toilet paper in the can and the isopropyl alcohol. If you've got, you know, some paper, some isopropyl alcohol in a container of some kind, you have heat. This will burn for a while. The alcohol doubles as part of your first aid kit, which I'm joking about this. I carry, you know, more than alcohol and Band-Aids, but you can get pretty full-blown. There's a full-blown kit behind the camera with everything, including medication that you could possibly imagine, and you know, take what you need. A pocket knife, if you did fall off in a ditch, maybe your seat belt became disabled, you can always cut yourself loose from it. It'll be used to cut, you know, strips of this fabric, this towel, whatever. If you needed to insulate your windows with that duct tape and a piece of fabric, there's just no reason not to have a $2 pocket knife that you can get from your local box store, whatever. These are super cheap. There are 10 body warmers in here. Each of them claims to have 18 hours of heat in it. So there's enough heat in this to get you and a couple other people comfortable overnight if you have the appropriate clothing. A pack of these is about $5. No reason at all not to have some of these. They would fit in your glove box. A small tool kit that is appropriate for your vehicle. If you have a metric vehicle, a foreign vehicle, and even some American stuff, most of that runs on the metric size tools. You need to have a metric tool kit. Maybe even an adjustable wrench, a Phillips head, a common screwdriver. Just, you know, go through your vehicle and kind of look and see what you might need. There's no telling what you might need. But these are not, especially around Christmas, they are cheap. They're trying to get rid of them. They package them small like this so they can sell them cheap. Okay. Clothing. Now, clothing is probably one of the things that you can really mess up on. When I was in Montana, I attended what they call Frosty Glade, which is a winter survival school, 3 or 4 years in a row. I can't recall, but it was always refreshing to get always great to get a refresher every year while you were there. You know, out hunting in the mountains and stuff, you kind of weren't so afraid to expose yourself to the elements if you knew what to do in case of an incident. One of the acronyms that the survival guys taught us was colder, and it's a common acronym in the survival community. Colder, the C is for clean, keep your clothing clean. It works better, it works as it was designed. The O is for avoid overheating, so you don't sweat. You know, the perspiration is going to make your clothing not work as well either. The L is for loose and layered. So what you want basically is to allow the clothing to be loose. You have circulation in there. You can have dead air space. You can regulate your temperature better, control the moisture. The D is for dry. Of course, that goes right along with not overheating. The E is examine. You want to make sure that you know your clothes aren't dirty, aren't wet, aren't coming apart. And the R is for repair. If they are dirty, wet, or coming apart, you need to repair them, dry them, you know, whatever. Okay. Cotton, probably the most common fabric, is kind of a no-no. All right. Cotton absorbs moisture. Once cotton gets wet, it's really no good at keeping you warm. It's gonna freeze you to death. So I would stay away from cotton. Down, you know, feathers, same thing. It's great when it's dry, horrible when it's wet. Wool is a fantastic fabric, but I'm not too big of a fan of putting it on directly on my skin. Okay, it's great for clothing, insulating layers, even socks. You know, they don't bother me too much as socks, but you would be very miserable with wool up against your skin. It insulates well and it works even when it's wet. So wool is fantastic. Poly fleece, anything that fuzzy looking stuff, it's great. It works great as an insulator. Polypropylene, which I was in the military for 22 years, so I have stacks of polypropylene. They issued the stuff to us every year, whether we need it or not. Polypropylene works well up against your skin and as an insulator. So it actually provides a wicking action. It will pull moisture away from you and insulate you. These are bottoms. This is the polypropylene top with the turtleneck, zip-up turtleneck on it. Keeps you really warm. These are heavier weight stuff. The thinner polypropylene, which is known as a sleeper shirt, same fabric, just a little bit thinner, zips up, comes around your neck. Thinsulate is another common fabric that is a good insulator. As far as the outer shell goes, you want something that'll repel moisture and block the wind. So fabrics such as Gore-Tex, anything along that line, a tight nylon or polyester blend typically is what that's for. It's a shell, it's a wind blocker, it's made to keep the wind off of you. A good wool cap, or if you can't get wool, just some kind of cap. But as the old saying goes, your wool socks, as the old saying goes, if your feet are cold, put a hat on. Most of your body's heat radiates through the top of your head. So, you know, you're going to start losing, the first thing that's going to get cold is your extremities, your toes and your fingers. So if that happens, get that head covered up. Let's see here. Some kind of a signal device. Now I looked for something like this yesterday and I just couldn't find it. You know, they used to make these things that you could pop up in your window and said help or call for help or whatever. I didn't see anything like that available to me at the store I was at. I'm sure you can hop online and buy something, but that's a great idea. You know, if you're driving down the road and you see a car in a ditch, you may stop, but if you see a car in a ditch with a sign up there that basically says, hey, you know, I need some help,
you're more than likely at least going to pick up the phone, dial 911 for those people, and report that there's a vehicle in the ditch and that they might need some help. You know, one of the science is fantastic. You know, the longer that we are on this earth and constantly evolve, you know, products and everything, it just makes me want to live forever, so I can see all the stuff that we can come up with. But one of the really awesome, most awesome things I came across here lately is dehydrated water. Now, you're like, there's no way. Yeah, in this bag is dehydrated water. And the trick is, you know, you open this up, and just like all dehydrated foods and everything, all you got to add is some H2O. So if you pour H2O in here, and this is it's about a 17-ounce bottle of H2O. If you pour 17 ounces of H2O in this bag of dehydrated water, you'll get 17 ounces of water. So it's very important that you keep plenty of water. Even in the wintertime, you can dehydrate, and you need plenty of H2O and dehydrated water in your bag. Okay, so there's really, you know, there's a lot of factors to survive in something like that. You know, sliding off in a ditch in cold weather, the extent of the temperature, and you know, where you are, and are you in a remote location, or are you just outside of town where there's a lot of traffic and all that. But there's so many things you can do to get yourself out of a jam. You know, we talked about the vehicle preps, the things that you can have on your own person, which would be kind of a self-rescue. Tow straps, chains, you know, like we talked about this earlier. If you don't have the room for it, you're not going to carry it. I mean, I know guys that have, you know, trucks with toolboxes and they're just packed full of stuff, and really they keep that stuff year round. But self-rescue is really your responsibility. You need to have that first aid kit, the things that you would need, no doubt. If that happened, you should have them on you. And in this day and age, there's really no reason not to have a form of communication, a cell phone that functions, a charge cable, a way to hook that charge cable up to your vehicle to maintain that battery. You know, all that is simple. So as far as if the power went out in the house, I keep 3 generators functioning at the house here. We've got the fuel, we've got the electric fan blown heaters. You can use the ceramic kind, you can use the infrared kind, you know, whatever you've got. You need to not rely on your small generators like the one that I have. I think it's 800 watt, 900 max, something like that. Do not rely on that small of a generator to provide you with power to heat up one of these heaters. This little heater here, it's awesome. I mean, it's less than $10 at Walmart, but it is a 1500 watt heater. Even as small and lightweight as this thing is, it doesn't weigh a pound hardly. That little generator probably would overload trying to run that. The other options for heat in the home would be, of course, the fireplace insert. You need to have a little firewood laying around in case something like that happens. Don't just have it laying around. It needs to be in a protected environment. It should be seasoned. It should be protected from the elements, dry, ready to burn. Okay? You don't want to need firewood and it be out there in a winter storm soaking wet with ice all over it. You couldn't get heat very quickly from that. You might keep you some, I'm looking at propane bottles and the torch attachment for those. Those would allow you to start a fire pretty quick, maybe even a little bit of diesel, just to get things going. I'm thinking about, you know, if the power went out and it is 20 below, things are going to get cold really fast, and you're going to have to act really fast to not be uncomfortable. You want to close off as many rooms and doors as you can to keep the one room that has the heat source in it from losing all the heat to everywhere else. Okay, so in addition to heat, if it's really that cold outside, then there could be problems with access to to the store, being able to get your food, your water. Let's assume that your source of water is frozen. Whether you have city water, community water, or well water, if it were that cold outside, then odds are pretty good that you're not going to have access to any of those things. So you may need to store a considerable amount of water in the home, in or near the room that is going to be warmed and keep your family warm. So you're not going to be able to run all of these generators and have enough heaters and all that stuff to keep the whole house, in some cases, keep the whole house warm. That's out of the question and completely unnecessary. If you put your whole family in one room with a small heater and everyone is dressed appropriately, you've got ample food, plenty of water, a potty, a 5-gallon bucket. You put the trash bag in it. You get the snap-on toilet seat. When that bag becomes more than you can handle, you just take the toilet seat off, tie up the bag, set it outside. It's going to freeze in a few minutes. You put a new bag in it. So there's all kind of things that you need to think about in this cold weather environment. Do not rely on having a water source provided to you. You need to provide your own water source for you and your family, your own food, everything. So that should do it. As long as you got food, water, clothing, and you can keep warm, you should make it. All right. Well, I doubt you learned anything because it was pretty basic, but I appreciate you watching till the end. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone else's videos, especially you northerners, to see what you have to come up with to survive in the winter. Thanks.